Today on Arkham Audio, we sit down with composer Graham Plowman, who writes and composes orchestral music for board games and role-playing games. We talk about his process and the method to his madness. So without further ado, Graham, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, yeah, I'm a composer, but it's part-time. Like I'm not full-time composing. I've been doing it for only about 9 years now. I've been playing piano for years. My parents got me a cheap keyboard, back in the day. That's where I learned to read music, and yeah, there was just an interest in film music and an interest in just kind of playing around with the piano, and it got to a point where technology started to catch up. So I thought, maybe we could actually, write some full orchestral music, seeing as the computers were getting more powerful, and all these instruments and stuff were coming out. Yeah, from Ireland. Don't know if you can tell from the accent. Dublin, from Dublin, Ireland. Lived here all my life. That's me.
So do you have any formal education or training, or is it just all self-taught from the time when your parents got you your first keyboard?
Yeah, it was all self-taught pretty much. I mean, I learned how to read notation in school, just as a sort of a normal kind of music class. And that's what I used to. I used that as a basis to teach myself how to play the piano. So, and well, I wasn't even playing piano. I was just playing on this little keyboard. But I was looking at the notation all the time and sight reading, and I kept doing that. And then I upgraded the keyboard, got a bigger one. Then eventually got digital pianos, and then stuff like Cubase started to come out. The early editions of these sequencer programs that you could use, and I played around with them for a while, and still didn't really kind of know what I was doing with the music. I was basically just deciding to just amuse myself. That's pretty much all I did. I just amused myself with these programs, and with the piano. Wasn't trying to achieve anything.
And so what got you into the board game / RPG / definitely horror side of your composition and composing?
Well, that kind of just happened naturally, because my first proper orchestral compositions, when I started getting decent sounding instruments that I could use to put something together, and still knew pretty much nothing about orchestration, but thought I knew something about orchestration, which is, oh yeah, I've seen an orchestra play, I know what that sounds like. Not a clue, totally naive. Went in and I created some music for. There was rumors about the Hobbit films coming out. I'm just going to tell you how recent, this is. There's rumors about the Hobbit films being made. So I thought, oh, that's a good, kind of muse. I'll use that, and I'll try and write some sort of orchestral music based on the idea of it being the Hobbit. Huge Lord of the Rings fan. Huge fan of Howard Shore's score. And there's another story about that. I'll tell you later on. But that's what I did. I put together this music that I couldn't bear myself to listen to now, but based on the Hobbit. Kind of like, here's Bilbo's theme, here's whatever Gollum's theme. My own kind of little ideas, and that just kind of got me started. Maybe I could learn to do this properly, or at least better than I am doing. And so I wrote my first Cthulhu Lovecraft piece, and it was called Cthulhu Rising. And it just seemed to be very popular. And I kind of liked the idea because I loved Lovecraft stuff so much, because I'd played the the role-playing game for years. Back in the sort of the early 90s and up.
Were you a player or were you a keeper?
I was a keeper. Actually, yeah, I was more of a keeper than a player. I have played, but I was definitely a keeper a lot of the time.
Do you actually still play?
No, we don't. It's very hard to get people to play, together. I am playing Warhammer at the moment.
Oh, nice.
No, not the GM. I want to just participate. I don't want to, do all the study and do all the GM work.
No, I hear you.
So I'm playing two games. I'm playing Warhammer and I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I've only played Dungeons and Dragons for the first time last March or May, I think, because of this pandemic thing. I used to go to a friend's house to play board games all the time, every 2 weeks. Couldn't do that, so we turned it into let's have an online D&D game instead.
Nice. So that's the same thing that's happened with my group. We were meeting for board games, meeting for face-to-face role playing, and then everything has transitioned last year over into the virtual space.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. And as I started, I kept writing these Lovecraft kind of inspired pieces because there's so many stories there, and I just kept, doing the next one onto the next story, onto the next story, onto the next story, and somewhere in that, I had put together a video that was an hour long, based on pulling some of the older tracks and putting them all together. That video exploded in popularity. People started telling me that they're using this in the background for their gaming sessions or writing or doing art or whatever they're doing, various creative things that they were doing, and they were using the music in the background. So I started to evolve in the music to fit that, and started making it less bombastic, less distracting, and just more of an ambient feel throughout the music, because that is what people were responding to. That is what I actually started to really, really enjoy doing, that kind of stuff as well. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be doing it. And then, it also kind of, the response to it fuels me to keep going and keep creating more of it. So that's kind of how that happened.
So when you start composing, when you start writing these things, what is your compositional process? Do you like when you pick out a story, or do you go for a certain character and how that moves you? And like, is it, what is it that about that story that you compose to, and how do you translate the emotions of the written word into notes?
So what I do, and whether I get it right or wrong most of the time, is probably open for debate. But basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to imagine that story as though somebody made it into a film, or at least sometimes even a disjointed set of different scenes, because I might actually just ignore a whole element of the story in the middle or something, that I'd feel like like if there's a happy moment, or which is rare, I probably won't score the happy moment. I'll ignore it. People say, why was there a major chord all of a sudden in this dark, brooding, piece of music? I did do that. I did it once. I did it once in the horror at Red Hook. The main character, I hope I don't get this wrong now. It's been a good while now since I've done it. The main character is Irish, I think, and there was a Danny Boy reference in the story, and I put a Danny Boy reference in the music very briefly. But generally, the way I approach it is like that: thinking of a scene, thinking of trying to play it in my head as almost like I'm directing the scene, and then scoring what I have come up with myself as being, this is what the scene is. That's kind of how I did the Mountains of Madness soundtrack, which is pretty much done like a a fake film score.
It's amazing. I've listened to that many times.
Cheers.
So when you record, you said you pretty much do it on your synthesizing pianos. Have you ever actually had a chance to work with a full orchestra or do anything like that yet?
I've had pieces performed with orchestras in the States where the only collaboration is that they're sending me emails and we're sort of communicating back and forth, and then I'm going to put the score together, the actual written score together that they can use to perform. So non-Lovecraft stuff, I've had a couple of different pieces performed, but Cthulhu Rising, my first Lovecraft piece, was performed by get this right, the Washington Symphony Orchestra, I think in Pennsylvania, not in Washington or even Washington State, I'm not sure. And they also did the Rats in the Walls, where I did a sort of not everything that I write is immediately translatable to a standard, what you'd call a standard orchestra setup.
Right.
So I took all the brass stuff out of the Rats in the Walls and all the synth stuff and just tried to substitute it. So it's mostly strings and woodwinds. But yes, I've had those performed, and I have the sheet music and stuff for them.
And you have it on your store, correct? Like you have certain pieces that you can actually pick up on your store for sheet music, right?
Yes, I have. Yes, that's right. I have a couple of pieces up there. There's a link from my website to where those pieces can be taken.
Which will actually be down in the description somewhere below a little bit later on.
Grand. Yeah, it's hosted on a third-party website. It's called Sheet Music Plus, and there's a couple of random things up there. Like there's a Star Wars kind of inspired thing up there. Cthulhu Rising is up there, and some sort of an adventure style piece called Beyond the Stars. Random stuff like that.
Have you ever thought about putting out like physical CDs? Or I know the world's been changing so much that now everything is digital and Spotify, but have you ever thought about putting out like a vinyl or anything like that?
Yes, I've only ever thought about it because somebody would randomly ask me about it, and then I would quickly remember why I haven't done it, and then say, sorry, random person, thank you very much for the interest, but it's probably not going to happen. And the reason is early on, when I was in my sort of beginnings, when I was just exploring everything, I did create some CDs, not of any Lovecraft stuff, and I still have them, because the idea of having to create these CDs and then become a store to sell them and to ship them, I don't have time for that. And I don't think I'd be able to sell them all, because I don't think that people are that interested in CDs. I know somebody will come to me and say, hey, why don't you do CDs? But that's once in a blue moon. I get asked for more interviews than I have people asking me, can I have a physical CD? The vinyl, I love the idea of a vinyl, a big, art piece as well. It's about the art, isn't it, as well as the music.
Definitely. And everything sounds better on vinyl anyways.
Yeah, that analog warmth, which I put artificially into my digital recordings. There's a little secret for people, and I don't mean a vinyl crackle, but I mean like a tone of the room. I have a room tone recorded of a silent stage hall. Or stage recording, and that's playing in the background ever so quietly, that if you play dead silence, but that's on, and then you turn it off, you'll notice it. it's like the life just gets sucked out of the room, and oh, there was something there. That's in behind all of the pieces I do, to
Oh,
give it that sense that it's actually recorded on the stage, because none of it is real.
that's actually really amazing. Wow. Um, so what is your favorite piece that you've done thus far?
Yeah, so I thought about that one, and yeah, there's kind of no contest really. It's a case of the Dream Quest of Unknown Cadet is probably my favorite, and with very clear reasons. It wouldn't be my favorite production, because I think when I listen back to it, I think I could, change some things, tweak some aspects of it, aspects of the sound and all that stuff. Because I'm always evolving, always learning, always trying to improve certain things. But from a composition point of view, it's definitely my favorite, because it's based on something that I'm very, very, very fond of, which is the kind of the Lord of the Rings, Howard Shore kind of film score, which I mentioned earlier. And there's a lot of similarities in the way I composed that piece to the way I orchestrated that piece, to the way that Howard Shore did Lord of the Rings. And I wanted to just do something like that, just for my own. I do stuff for my own interest. That's the main thing. Like, I do it because I want to do it, and not because people are sending me commissions. Yes, I do commissions and stuff, but you generally won't hear any of them on the YouTube, because those commissions go off to be part of some other person's project somewhere else, and so you don't hear them on YouTube, or Bandcamp or anything, Yeah, so that is my favorite piece.
So if somebody, speaking of commissions, so if somebody wanted to hire you for a commission, what type of commissions do you enjoy taking? How do they contact you for that? What is it that you do for commissions?
Well, email. People, there's a button on YouTube, button on the website, all these things where you can, if you can find find my email if you want it. It's not hard. That's probably why I get so much spam all the time. I'm part-time, so I turn down commissions, unfortunately. But I've only got so much time. I can't just keep working on music all the time. So I enjoy doing short films from time to time. I will and have committed to doing feature films. Very, very, not reluctantly is not the right word. Very cautiously, if not sure what I'm trying to say, that I have to consider it very, very carefully about the time scale and the amount of work that's going to have to go into it. Because I don't want to start anything for anybody that I won't finish. I'm not going to let anybody down. But if somebody says, "Hey, will you do a film score?" and I say, "Sorry, I can't," they'll probably think I'm letting them down. Well, I haven't committed to anything, so what can I say? But I would, if I start something, I'll see it through.
So
Yeah.
what feature films have you worked on, like full-length films?
So back in 2015, I did a fantasy film, which is completely sort of against what I was writing, all the music, called Arthur and Merlin. So that was a great experience. Had a lot of fun on that. A lot of work as well, huge amount of work, going back and forth with the director and working on all this stuff.
So this is a weird question for that.
All
So
right.
do do you just get a script with those, or do they provide you with, like, here's the film, go watch it, now compose something for it? I've always wondered how that actually, how scores get written for movies like that.
Okay, so it can happen either way. The most common way it's happened for me is that very early on, somebody hasn't even shot a piece of footage, and they're sending me a script, and saying, "Do you want to do it? Here's the script. Get a feel for it. Do you think you'd have a main team, or for this character? That kind of stuff. It depends. You can get into a dialogue very early with somebody who's making a film where they've only got a script, and I'm wary of that situation, because usually that's where it stays, as a script, and so writing music at that point could be a dead end, and could go nowhere. I've never been given a film that's been finished where somebody says, "Here you go, score that." Never. It's never happened. Not even short films. I can't even get a short film to say, "We really need a composer. Here's a short film, please. Do you think you'd be able to do this?" I'd love that. Just give me your finished thing, please, and I'll score your finished thing, and I won't have to re-edit the music when you change your mind on scene 3 or whatever it be. But sure, look,
Yeah, it would definitely be easier to get a feel for what you're seeing, and have it move you a certain way than just a blank script. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, unless you're time sensitive, I could keep going. I did a film called An English Haunting. Had a great time on that film. The guy, Charlie Steeds, who directed it and wrote it, contacted me very early on, sent me the script, and then said, "Hey, I hope to be able to film this." And so, okay, great. And then he did. He went and filmed it, came back to me, and I'd written a kind of like a team for the film, just in the basic sketch form. And then he started sending me scenes as they were edited, with out of sequence, out of sequence of the film. So I got the finale of the film. This happened on Arthur Merlin as well, actually. I got the finale of the film. I got the intro of the film. I got the random scene in the middle of the film where I got missing scenes. So watching two characters argue about something, and then it says insert cellar scene here. And it's like, well, is it really going to be 1 minute long like that black screen was? Well, give or take. Oh God, that's right. So I have to write music. I have to write music that could easily be extended or shortened, because I may have to extend or shorten it, over that scene. So yeah, I mean, it's anything can happen. They give it to you in they're building the thing, and you're saying, trying to put this piece of music against that, saying, "Yeah, can you build it with this music?" "Oh, no, can't build it with that music. Like, try again. What about this music?" "Oh, that's brilliant." And then a week later, "That music that was brilliant. Yeah, I needed to change it though, because I decided to change this part as well." Oh, okay. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It keeps going.
Sounds like so. For your typical, going back to your shifting gears, going back to your YouTube videos, on your typical, let's see, ambient board game / role playing games, how long does it take you to write one of those, and actually from start to finish, from inception of picking the piece that you're going to write to scoring the music, to actually getting it produced and putting it out? What is the whole process time generally on those?
It varies, is the proper answer. I can do. Let me see. the music isn't very complicated. It's a couple of tracks of different instruments weaving in and out at different times. Um, there's tons of instruments, but they're not all playing together. There's no big orchestra tutti, as they're called, which is the entire orchestra is playing. It's very, very rare. Again, like I want this not to be distracting. So it's a case of just weaving in, say the violins, and then they're gone, and then the violas, then they're gone, then a flute, and then and that means that I could get 5 minutes of music written in 2 hours, 3 hours, depending. I might end up having to go back and listen to it over and over again, add another layer, remove a layer, change things around, and that's what takes more time. Me messing around with the thing takes more time than actually writing the thing. Because I keep listening back to it and thinking, do I still like it? Yeah, I do. Or if I don't, I'll change something. Or I think actually there's a big empty gap there where no instrument is moving or changing notes, and that's something that that I definitely wanted to make sure that my music kind of had that. When it's you say it's kind of ambient music, but I wanted orchestral movement in it. I wanted to be able to latch onto like a theme idea, or even just a sound, or a background kind of synth sound that just comes out of nowhere, but it's soft and it's creating the texture. I'm 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 trying to avoid the I'm trying to avoid the kind of like the drone kind of sound, you know, by just having some sort of orchestral movement in it. And so that whole process can take about for an hour piece. Oof, it could take a couple of weeks.
Can you tell us about like what are the certain moments in a piece that really stick out to you that you really enjoy creating? Like how do you do your climaxes and your intros and your outros, or do you just generally try to maintain the same kind of tone throughout, because a lot of it is ambient or board game, because that's what most people respond to?
So yeah, you pretty much explained it there, that when I moved more into the ambient, I decided it's best to keep it all as level as possible. Oh well, to within a point, I often have like a big string melody or something come in, but then that'll be gone and probably come back, maybe 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, wherever it be. Or have just a sudden sort of ambient creepy texture or something like that, for the pieces that were more based on each story, each kind of Lovecraft story, that were written to be like a normal kind of piece of music. By that I mean just a piece that has an intro, has an outro, maybe has a theme, and so on. I don't follow that model very closely, even with those pieces, because I'm scoring it like I've, like I said, imagined the scene in my head. And Lovecraft stories usually would end with the, big shock reveal, the guy was the creature all along, or, or we're all doomed and mankind is doomed and the only's just realized it, so I don't want to end every single piece with a big massive crescendo and then, so yeah, I don't conform to that kind of typical intro outro model for most of the music, and certainly don't conform to it for the ambient pieces. So it's kind of hard to kind of comment on that. I just don't write in that method. I'm not like Beethoven that I have an A team, I have a B team, I have a C team, and I'm having, recapitulations of the music and and repeats in different sections and a coda, and I'm not writing in that kind of classical sort of format, or even a song format. There's
So
no chorus, and
so you mentioned Beethoven,
mm,
and with today's modern music, it's just really not really that orchestral. What other types of music inspires you? What other composers move you? What do you listen to on a personal level that gives you inspiration?
um, ooh, you might be surprised to know that I don't listen to a lot of music. I really should. I should listen to more than what I listen to. It's probably the best way of putting it. The my main inspirations will come from film music. I just enjoy music that was written specifically for a film, to either match scenes or whatever it be. I don't know why that interests me
Some more
specifically.
soundtracks and scores.
Yeah, soundtracks and scores. Again, I keep mentioning like sort of Howard Shore, and but John Williams is a huge influence as well for a lot of the stuff I've written. It's kind of based on Star Wars and just general sort of adventure music and stuff. Excuse me one sec. So yeah, I mean, it's other film music that I would just listen to and sort of take sort of inspiration from. Marco Beltrami is definitely a big influence. I really love his scores. If you're not familiar, he's done a huge amount of horror films. Um, The Quiet Place and The Quiet Place 2, which is, I think, it's just coming out. The remake of The Thing, um, Scream, so many horror films. The remake of The Omen, keep going. He did Logan.
Familiar with the work, not with the name, but yeah.
Yeah, well. There you go. You see, it's a huge repertoire of films, and a lot of films that people would have seen, but they probably wouldn't have thought. Well, I know the composer. Maybe other composers are looking out for the name of the composer, but general filmmakers or sorry, general audience are not. Um, which is another thing about the music as well being all virtual, that a lot of people, the general audience, you know, if it's just produced well, uh, and they won't notice that it's kind of not real. They probably don't really care if it's produced well and sounds good. Then that's perfectly fine. Other composers go, oh, that's a fake trumpet. Oh, that's a fake string. Or that's the worst legato transition I've ever heard. You get all this kind of stuff going on, um, almost to the point of parody, where somebody had put a demo up that was recorded by, um, well, the person asked the question, hey, I love that demo. Um, what did you use to record it? You know, in their intention was to ask, what sample library did you use to record it? The person responded and said, the LSO. And he goes, oh, okay, yeah. Oh, it's just, yeah, the strings sound a bit fake here, but it's still really good. The LSO is the London Symphony Orchestra. It was a live, beautiful live performance by the London Symphony Orchestra. But because this guy just assumed it was a sample library, because it was called a demo, the track was called a demo. He just assumed that things sounded fake to him, and you get weird, weird kind of ideas like that, and bias from other composers when listening to music. It's a problem. It's become a problem. You can't listen to music now without going, yeah, it sounds a bit synthy there, Yeah, that violin, you know.
So speaking of other composers, what advice would you have for anybody looking to get into composing to
Ooh,
scoring and or maybe doing ambient stuff for that?
yeah. So, um, it's a tough one. I run a group on Facebook called Virtual Orchestration. Has over 25,000 members, and there's a lot of young composers and eager composers all flooding in, asking for advice on all sorts of stuff on that forum. Um, and one of the main things I would say is just get really, really good at what you do. Learn, train your ear. You have to train your ear. If you're doing orchestral music and you want to have good productions, you have to train your ear to understand what sounds fake. I've had to do it. I've had to train my ear. It's taken nearly 10 years, because I listen to my old stuff and go, ooh, even from a production level and stuff, I kind of go, oh my god, it's so muddy. Muddy is a common term we use for music that has just this sort of. So it's almost like the lid on the piano has been closed, and you're playing the piano and the lid has been closed, and there's a kind of dullness to the sound. Um, uh, I mean, get really good at what you're doing. Get really, really proficient in the styles that you are interested in writing for. Um, Train your ear to understand what sounds fake. Not that it has to sound real. It's a case of understand what good production is, and make sure that it sounds quality. There's a benchmark for the production part of things, regardless of the instrument you're using. There's a benchmark for the recording of it. Whether it's a virtual recording or you actually have mics and you're playing a guitar or whatever. There's a there's a obvious benchmark of quality there. Take a reference track, something that you love and want to. You're not copying it. You want to emulate the quality of it in your own recordings. So put that into your sequencer, listen to it, A and B it with your own piece, and and listen for why is yours so much lower in volume, and or sounds like it has the lid closed on it, that kind of thing. There's so many ways. Film music is all about networking, something that I am terrible at. Something that, as you probably noticed when I mentioned that I don't generally give interviews, I don't particularly want to do. I've said before I turn down work. I'm a terrible person to be telling others how to go out there and become a film composer, but directors come to me. I'm not going to anybody. I'm not even looking for work from people, but they're coming to me. And the reason I think is that I write music that they think is suitable for whatever project that they have dreamed up in their head or are actually actively filming or whatever it be. And they are coming to me with that because they've heard the stuff on YouTube or Bandcamp or whatever it be. and that is it. If you have a body of work that's discoverable and you network, you could be way more successful than I could ever be because you're actively going out there and showing people, and they're coming to you as well. And it's all building up into this where you're going to be turning down work because you have a full schedule. I've got 3 feature films to do, and 4 shorts, and so get really, really good at doing it, and the work will come to you. go and hunt the work, but it'll also come to you. You know.
Very good advice. Very good advice. So, what other creative outlets do you have besides music?
Well, I used to draw, not so much now. Used to write, not so much now. I had a lot of sort of half, sort of, I'm gonna say half-assed creative outputs. That music is the only one. The orchestral music, the music used to be half-assed too. It was until I decided to start trying the orchestral stuff that it became, actually this is what I think I want. I want to actually put time into from a creative, instead of just dabbling in this, dabbling in that. I'll put real time into this. I'll understand, learn orchestration.
Well, it's definitely paid off, man. Your stuff is phenomenal, and I've enjoyed so much of it. So, speaking of finding stuff, and where can users or listeners purchase your music and purchase things like that? Do you have any merch? Do you have any kind of stuff like that?
Merch. I'd love to have some merch apart from physical CDs. Actually, no, I wouldn't love to have some merch because then I'd be in the same boat. I'd have to pack it up and send it off to people.
Cafe Press.
Yeah. Band, right. So, okay. So all of the standard music stores, right? So iTunes, Amazon Music, Google Music, or YouTube Music, I think it's called now. Bandcamp. There's more. There's some I've never even heard of. Like my music's on something called, I'm making this up, Deezer, or I was like, what the hell is Deezer? Oh, it's a music store, or it's a streaming service. Oh, Spotify as well. Forgetting the biggest one, Spotify. Spotify. Despite the controversial nature of people saying that you don't get paid enough, on Spotify, which agree with from a royalties point of view. Per stream you probably get like 0.0005 of a cent or something. Spotify still is a platform that everybody, or a lot of people will use.
Yeah.
So if you want your music to be heard, you can't really take the stance that you're going to, decide not to release on
Right.
the biggest platforms. It's best you do.
Is
if
YouTube,
you want your music out there.
What is your best platform that you find that is the most successful for you?
Oh, sorry, one sec. Frog in my throat. The best platform is YouTube. For me, by far, YouTube is what created my audience. YouTube is usually why people are coming to me. I could give you some YouTube stats if you want. Just click here. So in a month on average, 200,000 views.
Oh wow!
Across the channel, and one of the things with views is like it's music, right? Okay, so yeah, sure. A view is like somebody watched for 30 seconds. I think that's how YouTube do. So you say, well, yeah, somebody could turn your music off after 30 seconds. Yeah, I know, sure, of course they can if they want, but it gives you watch time as well, as you're probably familiar with. So watch time is 40,000 hours a month.
I'm still trying to get to 4.
Yeah, it's when I released longer videos that started to really climb, because people were spending more time just leaving it to play in the background and the board game and thing and all that stuff. So that aspect of it sort of created a massive upsurge in watch time. Didn't create a massive upsurge in view time, but it didn't watch time because people were now watching the same series or the new series of videos, but for longer.
Right.
But then 200,000 views a month is a huge increase over where it was a year ago, for example. It's doubled, more or less. Yeah, that's it. And there's real obvious sort of peaks and troughs, as the weekend comes, way up, as the weekend, Tuesday, worst day of the week, Tuesday, boom, nobody's playing any games, nobody's doing anything. They're probably just sitting there, unable to think and don't want to be creative or play anything.
So definitely during like holidays or days people have off is your peak times.
Yeah, well, you're not going to win a prize for guessing which holiday. Everything goes up through the roof.
Good.
Halloween. Yeah, Halloween. While Halloween Gone was my best Halloween ever. It was crazy. It was 400,000 views. It was 50,000 hours or 60,000 hours of playtime, and a massive, like 2,000 subscribers, increase just over that Halloween period. It was massive.
Wow, that is insane.
So yeah, it's a seasonal thing as well, of course.
Well, I think that's about all the questions and all the stuff that I have time for today. I want to say thank you, Graham. I really appreciate your
No
time.
worries.
And, if you ever want to come back, I would definitely appreciate it. And
Yeah, no better. Cool.
take care, man.
Thank you. Cheers.